So let's take the mystery out of radius gauges. There's our 17-inch gauge. Here's our 14-inch gauge. That American Strat that I'm refretting is going to be just a straight 14. The other guitar will be 14 blending into 17 on the top end. It's a compound radius. There we go, 17, 14, and 9.5 inch radius. 9.5, 17, and 14. You can see the difference between the 9.5 and the 14. So it will be this center portion of the fingerboard that needs to be lowered. The outside edges shouldn't really touch until the center has been lowered enough to accommodate that flatter 14-inch radius. I thought it'd be an interesting thing to kind of set the timer on, just to give you a reality check on how quickly I change this radius from a 9.5 to a 14. Go. I'm concentrating on the center, and like I'd mentioned in other videos, it's actually a conical shape that you're sanding, so the outside edge won't be touched until I drop this radius down to where we want it, which is a 14-inch radius. I'm going to stop in a second and kind of check my progress. This neck was actually pretty straight, so I held up that 9.5-inch radius gauge at the beginning, and we'll check to see how close we are to the 14 now. Where there's our 14-inch gauge. Wow, there you go. That's how close we are. We're almost at that 14 already. It's been 1 minute and 29 seconds, and obviously I've been taking my time and explaining as I go, so you can see how fast this is. Now we're going to work towards the outside edge gradually, but I still go across the width in a conical shape along the trajectory of the string path. When you get to that outside edge, I'm always after my students for this, you got to make sure that you don't roll that outside edge, because you have to remember that when you put the frets in, the underside of that crown needs to sit tight against the outside extremity of the fingerboard. So you don't want to roll over or soften this outside edge. That should actually be sharp to the touch when we're done. After the frets are installed, that's when we round it out a little bit. When I touch those outside edges, we've dropped this radius down quite a bit in the 2 minutes we've spent so far. Notice there's no dial calipers or pulls up the back of the neck, or vices or vice grips or CNC machines. This is all done by hand. And actually, I would have been done by now if I wasn't actually doing a tutorial for your benefit. I understand completely what Al Maynard from Nova Scotia said. Oh, he's a pro guy. But he did say after using the tech deck that first week his shop's production had tripled. I believe you, Al. Okay, let's have a look. How close are we to 14? I would say we are extremely close. That is 14 right on the money. And up here, yep, there you go. A perfect 14-inch radius. I've been yakking away and doing this at half the speed I would normally do it. Okay, we'll check this again. Across its width. Perfect. Perfect 14-inch radius, and along the length, dead straight. So I think we got a grand total of, I mean, it took a while to set up and stuff, but once I got into the job, maybe 7 minutes to prepare the fingerboard. How's that for speed? Always gather some dust from the fingerboard after leveling, just in case we need a little filler. I don't think it's even going to be necessary on this particular job, because the frets came out super clean, and we'll make sure they go in super clean. This is the EVO fret wire, 90 wide, 55 high. What is nice about this is that it comes in these coils that are 21.5 inches approximately across. I'm doing that 14-inch radius fingerboard on this Strat. It's over radiused perfectly. Yeah, I cut it slightly over length, buff the ends, tap it into place, it grabs that 14-inch fingerboard radius beautifully. Now that the fingerboard has been leveled and re-radiused to that 14-inch radius, the next thing we need to do is we need to check the fit of the fret in the slot. If the fret is too tight, it'd be like you'd be driving 22 wedges in the neck. So what do you think's going to happen? The neck's going to go in a back bow. So you need to get just enough pressure to hold the fret in place without forcing the neck into a back bow. So we're going to just check this first fret. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it looks like that's seating absolutely perfect. So you can see that I'm hanging over the fingerboard ever so slightly on both sides. That's the kind of fit that I like to get initially when I first put the frets in. Well, both fret ends are buffed, so that when I do my edge dress, we're reducing the amount of resistance to the file, the tooling force of the file, as much as we possibly can, so that you don't jar the fret on that outside edge. What we have here is a Japanese saw. Now the nice thing about the Japanese saws is that they cut on the pull stroke, which is great for fretwork. You start on that outside edge and pull towards the center. I only go halfway across the radius, right? So outside edge to center. What's nice about this saw, pick them up at the local surplus store. They're $8.95 Canadian. I don't know what that is, American, $4 or something. I buy about 3 or 4 of them at a time. They cut a 22 thou kerf. Perfect for this fret wire. 22 thou, right on the money. That 22 thou saw kerf allows this 35 thou fret. Now that 35 thou includes the bead. So that gives you 6.5 thou of compression into the wall of the kerf on either side. Perfect grab, not too tight, will not put the neck in a back bow, but will hold that fret in without any crazy glue or adhesive. Good, solid mechanical fit. There we go. All the EVO frets are prepared, cut to length. The ends are buffed and polished. When you see that bounce like that, that's exactly what you want. Tack deck is just one great big shock absorber. The mechanisms are rated for 300 pounds, so if you're putting 300 pounds pressure to drive a fret in, you're in trouble. These frets, because they're radiused to a tighter radius than this 14-inch radius fingerboard, they're all ready to install right off the roll. Beautiful. We have a minimal amount of edge dressing to do on this. This is the reason that you don't want too much fret protruding out when you go to do this edge dress, or you'll loosen those frets up on the outside edge. So we flush those up like so. We do the same on the other side. And then this is the file that I use. It's an auger file, so there's no teeth on the face. There's just teeth on the edge. On that side. The other one is the opposite. There's teeth on the face and no teeth on the edge. So this side of the file, just one pass, just take off that sharp inside edge very quickly. It doesn't score the fingerboard. This is used just to nick off that sharp point on the inside edge. Just one pass, very quickly. And this is real time, by the way. That side of the fingerboard is now done. You're better off being a little too steep an angle than too shallow an angle. I get those frets in pretty close to the final length when I tap them in, so we don't struggle at this point to kind of get that edge dress done. A few light strokes along the edge of that fingerboard and we bring these things right in flush. Just let my thumb kind of bump along the frets. Keeps me at the right angle. It's really not that complicated. And again, it's just one stroke on either side of the fret. The EVO wears a lot longer than your regular fret wire. I'm not a big fan of the stainless steel fret wire because it's not just that it's brutal on your tools, but I just don't feel that the stainless steel is malleable enough. It's very springy. It wants to spring back where it was. The nickel silver fret wire is still the best, I think, as far as workability, although the EVO lasts much, much longer. So it's kind of a personal choice. So we're going to vacuum up all those filings before we go any further. For any of you who have watched my videos, and certainly the hundreds of students that I've taught over this last 23 years, will probably notice a distinct absence of vices in my shop. After spending close to half a century working on guitars full time, I've never once put a guitar in a vice. This little puppy here that I use for kind of holding nuts and saddles, and I just love this. A university professor actually that took my course, he showed up at class with this thing, and I immediately went out and bought 6 of them. Love it. Saddles. I think it was $18.95 Canadian. Another thing that I never really understood is someone taking the neck off of a guitar to do a fret dress or a reef fret. That just didn't make any sense to me. Would you steam the neck off an ES335 to do a fret dress? Or a vintage Martin, would you take the neck off to do a fret job? There's just something fundamentally wrong with that. That's basically in a nutshell what we got. Original frets were pulled out, dropped that 9.5 down to 14-inch radius, and put those EVO frets in, edge dress. Still a little ways to go yet. For any of you who have watched any of the numerous videos that I've already posted on various types of fretwork, at this stage we go along the length of the fingerboard and we do our final leveling. I can tell you right now that this doesn't even need a fret dress, but I'm going to go through the motions anyway, just to show you how I would do it and how I would hit any high spots while I do this final leveling before the final recrown and polish. Start at the top end. I move along the trajectory of the string path and then go obliquely across the crown, and then I crosshatch, come back the other way. Like I said, this doesn't even need it, but I'm just going over it just to show you the motion. Since we don't even need to do a level on this one because it's perfect right out of the gate, and like you've seen me do in other videos, I'm going to flip this on its edge and fill in the ends of the frets, getting these strings out of the way because we're putting fresh strings on and we'll be setting this up. So what I do, just to guarantee that we don't lose those little blocks, just tape a piece of masking tape right over top of those, and that'll just stay in place until we're ready to put the strings on.